Joining me on the sports clock today is my good friend, former NHL player, He was drafted in 1995 by the Vancouver Canucks. He played for Vancouver, the New York Islanders, Los Angeles Kings, Chicago Blackhawks, Atlanta Thrashers, and Montreal Canadiens. He won the Stanley Cup with Chicago in 2010. Was a huge part of that Stanley Cup run. I don't think they make the cup personally in 2010 if it wasn't for this man in Game 5 with that awesome penalty kill. He currently runs the Brent Sopel Foundation that helps bring awareness to dyslexia. It's my pleasure to have on Brent Sopel. Brent, thanks for joining me this morning.
What's going on, buddy? Good to see your face.
Yeah, good to see you. I know we talk almost every day on the phone, and then it's nice to see your face.
No, it's not a face. It's face only mother can love, so we're good with the voices. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I do have to reminisce a little bit. So we got to know each other, and this is hard to believe. It's been, about 3 years ago now. We were neighbors in Clearwater. I knew you were down in the Tampa Bay area. I was living in Clearwater. Didn't really know that where you lived. I just knew Tampa Bay. And then it turns out we ended up going out to lunch one day. And not only did you live in Clearwater, we were less than a mile from each other. So how ironic.
Crazy world. Small world when it comes down to it.
Yeah. I remember that lunch at Hogan's Hangout vividly. And boy, do I miss their chicken wings,
Yeah, they did have good chicken wings, but I don't miss that heat and humidity. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of Stanley Cup, obviously I'm talking to a Stanley Cup champion. You're doing some great work, obviously bringing awareness to dyslexia, but you're bringing the Stanley Cup back to Chicago.
Yeah, I know. I've been lucky enough to partner up with NHL Charity Foundation. They've allowed me to have the Stanley Cup back in Chicago here for an event with the Sopel Foundation October 18th. So very excited about that, and just trying to put all those details together now. And me and details aren't too good, so it's it's racking my brain.
For sure. And talk about is the keeper of the cup, and I can't remember his name. I apologize. I've met him.
There's three, and they just hired. Obviously everybody knows Phil. They got Mike Bolts, and I think they just hired somebody else. So what people don't know is wherever the Stanley Cup goes, one of them go with it. So it's almost got a security guard. Obviously, it's the hardest trophy in the four major sports to win, but it's most cherished, most history wrapped into it. I think the other three sports create a new trophy every year. So, obviously that doesn't happen with the Stanley Cup. So that's why it's so precious. And the NHL doesn't own it. It's the Hockey Hall of Fame, right? So it's, it's a separate from, some completely different setup than what the other three major sports are.
Yeah, and let's talk about 2010, obviously, winning the cup there. And you and I have had many conversations about that, but I don't think fans understand what exactly it means to win a Stanley Cup. So can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Well, obviously it's a childhood dream to win a Stanley Cup, but for myself, won the Stanley Cup many times, 1,000 million times on the outdoor rink as a kid, but it's done more for me. It's elevated me and allowed me to have these platforms, to fulfill my purpose, which is the foundation, and which is dyslexia. That gets me indoors and lets me talk to people that definitely wouldn't be listening to me if I didn't win the Stanley Cup. So obviously, accomplishing a childhood dream, but fulfilling my purpose in life through that.
Yeah, and I know, just knowing you personally, you're very, very passionate about the work you do with the foundation. And I think that's one of the things too, just getting to know you over the years is, you and I, when we talk, we don't really talk hockey. I mean, when I play a game, I'll let you know how the game goes, but, we talk about life and what's important. And for me, as I'm kind of, my sports career is I'm starting to put those days behind me in terms of working in sports. I like doing what I'm doing, talking to people. Hopefully people get this out of their podcast, get something out of it to help them. I think that's why you and I get along so well is we just want to help people, but we want to use our sports backgrounds to do that. So just genuinely appreciate that.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. But, it's, when my kids, they used to come home, my kids used to think when I was a kid, when they were younger, I don't know how to play hockey. Well, because I'm dad, I got to go home and change a diaper. I'm not a hockey player. At the end of it, it comes down to it's a job. somebody, works at, let's just say, Lululemon for 30 years. You don't go back there. Oh, you want me to come watch me? It's a job, essentially at the end of the job. And everybody thinks that, the front side of it is all glam and glorious. And don't get me wrong, there's some obviously perks, but what goes on behind the scenes, and the travel, and we go on and on. But again, my purpose in life, and I finally found out when I got sober, is to help anybody I can not feel the way I do and not go through the things I do. So that's why the foundation exists, and that's the purpose every day, is not have a kid feel the way I do, or somebody struggling with mental health or alcoholism or drug abuse, not go through what I went through.
Yeah, and you brought up your sobriety, which I talk about to people all the time how proud I am of you, and Theo as well. Theo Fleury, great friend of mine as well, and just really think highly of both of you in that regard, that you were able to get sober, and it's something that I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure it wasn't the easiest thing to do. But once you did it, it's I guess tell me about that.
Actually, what are we at? 2,898 days. So I had a little calculator counted. Yeah, no, it was hard. I love drugs and alcohol because it gets you away from your feelings, right? Yeah. It's tough to feel those feelings, and I'm like, oh, now I gotta have sober sex and play sober golf the rest of my life. But it's sitting with those feelings, and it isn't easy, it isn't hard. It's work daily, but my life has been saved now. Every day I can stay sober. I have an ability to try and help another kid not end up where I am, or another individual, or another divorce go down, or another death through drug and alcohol abuse.
Yeah, and doing that, living in a place like Chicago, obviously, we both live there. I wasn't in the spotlight like you were, but I still felt like this is overwhelming. I couldn't imagine. I live outside of New York City now, but I'm in the suburbs. But I don't think I could go back to living the downtown high-rise life. I don't know. I guess when you're in your early 20s, but then talk about you like playing hockey. You're a celebrity, a public.
Let's be clear. I never lived downtown. I'm a farm boy. I was always in the burbs. I stay in the burbs. I'm trying to get back on the farm. So, things I was doing when I was 25, or I got grandkids now. When I was 25, completely different, right? Remember, we go out drinking all night long. I had some of the best games. Hung over, getting home at 6, 7 in the morning. And having game that that night, and playing back-to-back games, and not sleeping, just completely hung over. So. Those are the good old days, those younger days. Now it's like 4:30 dinner, 7 p.m. bed.
Yep, exactly. And I text you all the time, and I'm like, well, so my office used to be the sports stadiums, and now my office is here in Jersey and working. I always text you, I'm like, I'm in the office today. I guess I have to grow up and be a big boy now.
Big boy pants on now. It sucks. This real life thing sucks. I wish I could go back to be a kid.
Yeah, exactly. So talk a little bit too. You talked about the travel. I'm just curious, and my Chicago fans will appreciate this. Just kind of talk about, like, when you're flying out of Chicago, going to a game, and then flying home. Like, what exactly is the toll it takes on your body? Like, we don't feel it, but we could just imagine it.
Well, it all depends on where you're playing too. My half my career was in Vancouver, so Vancouver has the most travel out of any NHL team, and I think every road trip is usually like a 5, 6, 7 game. I think our longest was 17 days. So if you take a look at an NHL, there's 32 teams. I think in Vancouver's case, there's only 5 teams in the same time zone. So we're always leaving the time zone. We play 3 games in 4 nights in 3 different cities. Back in the day, pre-contract stuff, now we get 1 day off a month, and a lot of times, that was, here playing Chicago, we'd stay overnight, playing LA. It's 9:30 start. So our day off would be stay overnight and flying home and getting home at whatever, 3, 4, or 5 p.m. That was our day off, and, back to the rink. And, time zones, our body is pretty screwed up, because normally, just the nature of your body, way it exists, is you get up and you kind of ramp your day up, your cortisol levels and everything during the day, and then at night you go down. Well, we're the opposite, right? 7 p.m. we got to be at our height and get our heads beaten in, so then we don't sleep. So it's our body takes on a beating, and summertime we've got to diet hard and train to put muscle on because then we lose it all. So it's taxing. I think I get more metal in my body than most planes do. So it takes a toll. I'm 47 going on 67. My brain's 77. So hopefully my handicap sticker should arrive here soon in the mail and I can park closer.
Yeah. Well, you taught me something too. I remember I used to travel all the time, and I look back, I'm like, man, why? What purpose did this serve? Mine was for leisure, not to go make money or whatever. But you used to. I remember going out to the NHL All-Star game, and it was fun. It was out in Vegas, but I was like, I dread going to the West Coast. I like Arizona; it's great, but just the flight, especially now living in New York, it wasn't so bad living in Missouri or Chicago, but now the long flight. And you taught me something that I think I'm going to teach all our listeners. The best thing to do is fast forward or set your clock backwards to the time zone you're going to. That will help with your sleep schedule. And you taught me that, and I was like, well, you would know from experience,
I went to play in Russia too, so I've been on every time zone, and it's whenever you get on that plane, set your watch to where you're arriving. That helps with acclimating immediately, because let's say if you're taking off at 2:00 in the afternoon, and it's over where you're going is 9 a.m. You go sleep for 4 or 5 hours, whatever, and along 7 o'clock. If you're going to Europe, I guess you just you're back on that schedule, then you're done for 3-4 days. So again, you learn these little tricks as you go along. Set that clock wherever you're going, then you make that decision on how your sleep pattern is. Can you sleep full? Can you take a nap? Do you have to fight it? It's just little tricks of the trade.
Yeah, and I want to talk about too one story that's always kind of I don't know how I remember this, but it was Thanksgiving and you were playing. I think you'd just been traded to Atlanta from Chicago. I think it was when you were with the Thrashers, and you were telling me about how I guess the NHL got Thanksgiving off, so you literally flew out from Atlanta, flew back to Chicago to see your kids, have Thanksgiving dinner, and then flew back that night or something like that.
Yeah, I did that. I did that a lot. That year, I lived in Atlanta by myself, and I was married at the time, not divorced. But my kids, stayed in Chicago, so we had a lot of Sundays off. So I take the 6 a.m. out Sunday morning, fly to Chicago, spend the day, and take it was like an 8 p.m. out. That night couldn't stay overnight because where the practice rink was and the time change and the flights, I wouldn't get there on time. So I did that. Every day off, I flew back home. If that was just for a lunch or Thanksgiving dinner, just to see the kids as much again, because we miss so much. No matter even if we're home, we miss it. So I try to get home as much as I could.
Yeah, and I think back now, obviously I've known you a while, so you've told me some things, but looking back, it's like, we knew Chicago was going to have to get under the salary cap, so we knew you were one of the players that was probably going to go, but just thinking about kind of, players are human beings. I was talking to former Cubs GM, I had him on my show last week, Ed Lynch, and he said, when you trade players, they're human beings, and for me personally, just knowing you, it's like I could have seen you in St. Louis or Nashville, somewhere closer where it's easier for you to commute. I know it's a business. I get it. They have to do what's best for the organization, but you would think that there would be some sort of like, hey, here's where, we'd like to send you. There's opportunities. What do you think? And thinking about kind of your situation and other, what I mean? But I guess it just doesn't happen that way.
No, and that's the thing that, none of the fans, ever think. It's a business. They don't give a shit about who we are. They don't care about us, physically, mentally. They don't give a shit. Are you making us money? Are you making our team better today? Yes. Great. You're staying. No, you're gone. They don't give a shit who you are, what kind of person, what race, what religion. They don't give any, have kids, wife pregnant or, cancer. Like they don't care, so again, I think, I got traded quite a few times. I think I got more baggage than Samsonite, but you get that phone call. I think I was in LA, got traded back to Vancouver, 4 p.m. Call, you're traded. I was on a 6 a.m. flight to, I think it was St. Louis. We played in St. Louis, played that game. They don't. And then at that point in time, if you got kids in school, which I did, when you're going to see your family. So they don't, it's a business. It's sad to say that just like anybody else in corporate America. Like, oh, I wish my boss cared. They don't. You're just another number, and so are we.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. Kind of transitioning now into the work you do with mental health and obviously huge advocate for dyslexia. And I just think back to how sports was back in the day, how it is now, and the services and awareness that are out there. I see it becoming more prominent, mental health awareness, but
they don't give a shit about your mental health. We got to be the macho guys, right? And the hard part for us is that there's somebody trying to steal our job every day.
Right.
There's I played pro for 18 years. I think it was over 650 games in the NHL, something like that, over 1,000 regular season games, pro 18 years. There wasn't one day where I thought I made it. Because every day I was looking over my shoulder, somebody steal my job. So the hard part is that if it's not done, and again, it's not just sports. You talk about first responders, right? We can go down military, we can go down the list of that. If you show vulnerability because they're not educating the right way, you might lose your job, right? So there's a lot of different angles, to this. I'm looking over my shoulder trying to do my job, and if I come to them with an issue in the wrong person, I have to tell the wrong person, because they don't understand it. I can hold it against you, fire, demote you, whatever that may come along with it. So we're so early in the mental health journey here. I think we're only maybe 2 or 3% into that journey because of some of the things the way people are saying it and using it to promote themselves and make money. So it's not truly doing it the right way.
Right. And I think about, obviously I've done some work with mental health and it's been great. And it's, but I just wish we would have had these, I wish there was more awareness back in the day. I think about a lot of former athletes who would have maybe, and not just athletes, just people who things might have been a bit different for them, but it's just something you didn't talk about. And I'm glad people are being more open now, but it's a serious issue and it needs to be addressed.
100%. Again, hindsight's 2020, right? Again, back in the day we didn't have cars, we had horse and buggy, right? So, but at the end of the day, I always say there's no right or wrong. It's what's right for you, and everybody's journey is a purpose, right? Everybody's got a different journey, and it shapes you, good and bad, to who you are. And people always say, "Oh, what would you tell your younger self?" I always say nothing. It's made me who I am today, good and bad. If we all could shape what we thought was who we want to be, this world would be even a worse place than it is.
Yeah. Well, and I think about too, when I don't really even advertise that I lived in Delaware, but I lived 2 months in Delaware. And I remember texting you every morning and just saying, like, I got to get out of here. Like, you remember those conversations. Fortunately, I was able to transfer work, but I remember putting my job on the line. I went into my boss's office and I just said, look, I said, obviously this isn't going to work here, and, thankfully she was from St. Louis and she had family in Clearwater. So she knew kind of where I came from. And then you sent me to Newark, Delaware. But I think about how it shaped me. Number one, I don't think I would have made it as a professional athlete because you would send me to a city like, well, I don't want to single cities out, but there's
any city. We pick you up and move. You may not know a single person. Now your teammates and,
right. Yeah, so that was number one. Number two, I think it put it into perspective of, number one, I'm done moving if I can help it. Number two, it's appreciate where you've come from. I think about like my Clearwater days all the time, St. Louis, Chicago, and how I've grown up every stop along the way. And I think same probably for you. Every stop you grew up or you learned something from that experience, whether good or bad, that it made you who you are today. I know I certainly feel that in my case.
Everything happens for a reason, again, and it's all about self-reflecting. For me, like I always say, God never passes messages in positive ways. Somebody's walking down the road, skipping with a birthday cake and balloons, nobody stops, right? But if there's a car accident, everybody's stopping and checking it out, right? So that's the way we're developed. So everything happens for a reason. It's just taking a step back and can you see that reason? Can you see that lesson that was involved in that? And good and bad, right? I've had through it. There's a lot of lessons that I didn't see. It took me years and years and years to finally see them. And I used to say, the door gets slammed in my face. Now I can turn left to right because I know I'm supposed to turn left to right instead of kick it down that door. So, it's a process. It's the biggest thing is learning about yourself. And I always say, two best days of your life is the day you're born and the day you fall in love with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of talking a little bit reminiscing hockey wise. So a lot of my listeners are going to be in the New York City area. You played for the Islanders for, I believe, 2 seasons.
No, just a quick stop. It was Mike Milbury, who was the worst GM in history, worst human in history. So I enjoyed I enjoyed that rivalry. So I traded from Vancouver to Long Island. So pick up, move all the way across the country. I started the season in September and I got traded at the deadline all the way back to the West Coast to LA. So it was a quick stint, but I enjoyed my time there and the rivalry that goes on between the Rangers and Islanders. But it was definitely a quick stop thanks to Mike Milbury.
What's it like playing at? So I went to one game at Nassau Coliseum. Obviously, they're over at UBS now. Been to a couple games there. Been to many games at Madison Square Garden. Let me say this, two very passionate. I don't like the Islanders, to be honest with you. I can't stand them, but I respect what they've done. Bobby Nystrom, I respect a lot.
Stanley Cups, you can't beat that.
Yeah. But going to Nassau, I wish I would have gone to a game there when it was loud. It was right like a week before COVID happened, and it wasn't, but I still felt so. It's two passionate fan bases, two very historic arenas. So what was playing in those arenas? Obviously, you're going to Madison Square Garden as a visitor, but that's still got to be like, that puts you, just talking about it with someone who hasn't even played there just sends chills up my spine,
Well, MSG obviously goes down in history as one of the most, iconic buildings. So I don't think anything, can beat that, the where it is or right in the city, on the 5th floor. There's nothing beats, MSG. And again, just, like you said, both passionate fan bases. And I played in Vancouver, played in Montreal. So we love passionate fan bases. We love when you're winning but it sucks when you're losing and you're playing back because they know where you are and they get all over you. But obviously now that they said Islanders got the new arena, just the old school rinks aren't available anymore. Right. That was a different era. That's when hometown, home team advantage, home fans are on top of you. Kind of miss those days. All these new rinks obviously is beautiful, just like baseball stadiums. It's all about the fluff for the players, but and the fans. But it's not the way it used to be. So it was always great to play in front of passionate fans, no matter where it is. Playing for that team or playing in there. Always love it. Like when I played in Vancouver, had a lot of rivalry. Chicago against San Jose. Shark Tank, tiny, and so. We as players love the energy from the fans. We feed off that big time.
Yeah, and I remember talking to you. I went to one game in Philadelphia, and that's another team. I don't know which team I can't stand more. I'm a Rangers fan, but the Flyers or the Islanders. I would probably say the Flyers just because I went to one game and everybody was like, usually I'd wear my hockey jersey or whatever. They're like, dude, I think they were playing, the Flyers were playing Washington maybe. Mm-hmm. And they're like, dude, you need to wear like neutral colors, like neutral, don't wear any team stuff. And just sitting there, and it was a game, it was a regular season game, but it was very early in the season. But the fans were, they were assholes. I'll just say it. They were assholes. And, it was, I guess
it's back to your cheering for your own team. 100% love the passion for your own, but there's a line you have to draw, and it happens in baseball. You've seen fights, and you've seen people get killed. I don't care. It's just supposed to bring people together. Sports supposed to bring people together and open arms and great. Let's have a battle, and you're cheering for your home team, and all right, no problem. But let's just do it respectfully. This world's not. There's not enough love and kindness for each other. But on the reverse side is that not enough love and kindness for ourselves first. If you can't do it to yourself, you're not going to do it to anybody else.
Yeah, and I think back to and I don't really like talking about this that much because it does hit kind of close to home because of where I live and who the people I know around here. But I think back to 9/11 when the Rangers and the who did they play? I think they might have played the Islanders in preseason. It was the first event after 9/11 in New York, and the teams joined arms, like the national anthem. They were together, mixed together, one right next to the other, and it really kind of helped. And then, of course, the baseball playoffs were going on or about to start, and the Yankees, and it just showed that whoever you rooted for was who you rooted for, but we can come together. And I just look back and that's what kind of helped. I didn't live here, so I can't speak for it, but just in talking to people, I felt like sports is kind of what helped get the city back going after a very, very tragic event like that.
And that's what sports is supposed to be. Right. Again, go back. You can root for your fans, cheer and yell and get mad, but we can also do it respectfully. And I think that's what's and it's great to have different opinions and different thoughts, and that's what makes the world better. But having a different opinion or a different thought, it's not a bad thing. Right. And that's where I think we're really have gone sideways. It's all right. We can agree to disagree. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
We can do it respectfully.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to ask real quick, kind of last question. We'll wrap it up with one last topic. But so when you played for Chicago, obviously you shared with the Bulls, the United Center with the Bulls. In what was it, Los Angeles? Didn't you also share with? Was it the Clippers or
both Lakers? The Clippers and Lakers? Yeah,
that's right. They played the same arena. I don't really follow the NBA, but yeah. So what's that like in terms of schedule? So you go to a place like St. Louis where it's basically their rink and their rink only, but it's, they have concerts, but they can kind of work around. So do you feel like teams are at a disadvantage when they share with the basketball team, or do you think it actually brings more fans in, or does it not have any bearing at all?
It's got no bearing on it. It's just a business. Again, that's more money for whoever owns that building. It's usually the owner of the teams. And, and everybody's, pretty much everybody's got a practice facility. Only difference is that the ice conditions, right? If you've got a building where you don't have basketball games, or you got a floor being put on top or concerts being put on top, the ice is always going to be in good condition. That's the only difference. Again, I think at one point in time, United Center was the second or third busiest building in in the world next to MSG. I don't know who is second. I think it's Staples Center. So, but it's a business. Again, they don't care. It's a business. The ice condition is the only difference.
Got it. And where was the practice facility at in Chicago? I know it used to be in Bensenville back.
Yeah, when they went down to Johnny's West, which down Madison they built, and obviously now they just built the Fifth Third Center right across the street.
Yeah. And I just think back to living in Chicago, and I was there in I literally wrapping it up here. So 2015, I moved to Chicago, right? And a week and a half later, my cousin Ron, he'll be happy he got a shout out here. Week and a half later, I'm in the Chicago Blackhawks Stanley Cup parade. Won't tell you how I got into it. I'll leave that to my cousin Ron, who you know very well. But we were in the parade for about 30
a hot minute.
I think we made it from we got in right at the United Center. We made it across one of the bridges. We made it down to the loop, and and then they realized we were, because he had the bus with all the Blackhawks stuff. I got video of it. But anyway, moved to St. Louis in 2018. So St. Louis at the end of that year was in last place. And then they won the cup, and they won the cup that season after being in last place. So within a year, then I moved to Florida in 2020, and then Tampa Bay wins the cup in 2021. So every city I've lived in, a team has won the Stanley Cup up in a year.
Well, you might be getting calls for more owners of teams to get you to move to their city.
Well, I moved to New York, I'm in New Jersey, just outside of New York, and I thought, okay, I've got 3 opportunities every year for a team to win the Stanley Cup, and they came close both years, and it didn't happen. So my streak's over, but I plan on staying here, so hopefully a team wins, and I can at least say every place I've lived, a team's won the Stanley Cup. But
you're still young, you got some time.
Yeah, well, hopefully, I'd like to see maybe the Mets win a World Series. I'd like to see the Giants win a Super Bowl. The Rangers obviously win the Stanley Cup, but it was cool, being there in Chicago in 2016. And I guess we'll wrap it up with that. I was there working for the Cubs in 2016, got the ring, all that, got to be part of the celebration. From a player's perspective, what was that like, from the flight back to Chicago, we'll say the after party for the Stanley Cup?
For us is we won it in Philadelphia, so it was an 8:00 game. So we didn't arrive till back to Chicago, so like 5 a.m. Yeah. I know some people went out, kept drinking. I hadn't drank for 2 months. Obviously the playoffs. I had at that point married and kids, and I went home. Some kept going because I wasn't going to miss the first night in Chicago with the Stanley Cup. The next night, partying. So I went home, got a little bit of sleep. Some guys partied, didn't make it up that night, but it was pretty epic.
Yeah, definitely. And I think about, going down, I can only imagine being on the other side as a player, but when the Cubs came down Michigan Avenue and just how, again, we go back to it brings people together. The Cubs one was, I think, the 9th largest human gathering in history. And how it just brought a city together. And there were even White Sox fans who were texting me, who were congratulating, even though you're passionate about your team. You can't, like for me, I can't stand the Islanders, but I have friends who are Islanders fans. So if they won it, I'd be happy for them, just like Cardinals fans were happy for me. And to me, that's what sports is all about, is you respect your opponents.
Yeah, 100%. It needs to be more respect and love in the world.
Yep. Well, Brent, it was so great catching up. Thank you so much for your time and appreciate the work you're doing. Now, where can people find the Brent Sopel Foundation and get more information?
Yeah, website sopelfoundation.org. Obviously, I'm all over social media, so pop on there. I got my documentary. I got a podcast, so it's all on there. All the information. You need information, email me or direct message me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the one thing I think too, I respect a lot about you is you'll talk to anybody, and that goes a long ways for someone who's been a public figure to be able to just pick up the phone and talk to people. And like I said, you've meant a lot to me. You were the one who helped get me started playing hockey. I remember texting you when I was in Clearwater. I was like, I got this crazy idea. And you did. I was like, I remember the text. It said, don't make fun of me, and you were 100% supportive. So it's
you can't get to 2 to get 1. Everybody starts some point in time, so it's all about going up there and having fun.
I started at 27 years old. Okay, so it was like, I remember thinking, what the fuck am I getting into? But I've done it. I've loved it. I've made some of my best friends doing it. Hockey, baseball's kind of what got me my start. Basketball, but hockey is, I think, what's made me who I am. And last thing, I know I said last thing, but I felt like hockey has, I don't leave a dressing room without picking up every, pop bottle, chip can, you learn. Hockey builds character, in my opinion. So I think it's done that, and it's brought me close to a lot of really cool people. And I feel like out of all the sports I've been involved in, hockey has I don't want to say done the most for me, but it's done a lot for me in terms of not just player, but or amateur player. I try to play, but as a human being as well.
Yeah, it's hockey, is a little bit different than 3 other major sports. There's always a superstar and a hero and somebody showboating, and you can win that way. Hockey, you can't. So just like in a working company, you got to work together. You may not like them, but you have to work together, and that's hockey. So it's a very, very real transition of life.
Well, Brent, I appreciate it. I hope to get back to Chicago soon. Obviously, I'm going to be texting you when I get back to Chicago. And please tell the family hello for me. Always great catching up. I'm sure I'll be calling you later. But thank you for doing this. And again, BrentSopelFoundation.org, doing amazing things to bring awareness to dyslexia. And again, Brent is serious. It's not lip service. If you need someone to talk to, he will talk to anybody. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to make an introduction. With that, Brent Sopel. Thanks, Brent.
No problem.